A rain delay, an eventful day, all culminating in the Cardinals getting a big win over the Nationals. We'll talk about Sonny Gray's outing, an all-star swing from Brendan Donovan, and Lars Nootbaar still providing value, all coming up on b-schaeff Daily. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you, late evening hours now of Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. Where do we even begin? From an eventful Tuesday at Busch Stadium as the Cardinals defeated the Nationals 4-2 after a rain delay that lasted almost as long as the game ended up lasting, as the Cardinals, I believe, were around 2 hours and 19 minutes late to get things underway on Tuesday night against the Nationals because of rain in the area, but the Cardinals very clearly wanted to get this game in. I want to explain why it was so important for the Cardinals to make sure they played tonight and waited out the weather, and it has a lot to do with Sonny Gray and the fact that he was scheduled to pitch in this one. So I'll talk a little bit about the pitching machinations, revisit once again a common question that fans have been asking about why didn't Sonny Gray just pitch against the Cubs at Wrigley Field on the 4th of July. I want to dive a little bit more into that, circle back a bit, as a nice illustration by Post-Dispatch writer Derek Gould on Twitter today, I think was valuable in laying out maybe why the Cardinals approached it the way that they did. And we'll be able to then talk about Sonny's outing tonight under some, once again, different type of circumstances with the rain delay and how it sets up the Cardinals pitching for the rest of the week. We'll talk about the offense that did just enough against Jake Irvin, the starter for Washington this evening, led by Brendan Donovan. How about Lars Nootbaar, whose name on social media today was certainly thrown around in a way that maybe many people didn't expect, but myself, knowing Joe Roderick at STL Sports Central, I wasn't necessarily surprised. I'll explain what I mean by that and more coming up on tonight's episode of b-schaeff Daily. If you enjoy daily St. Louis Cardinals content, you're in the right place. Just make sure you hit subscribe to this YouTube channel or follow the podcast b-schaeff Daily on Spotify for regular Cardinals coverage and content all season long and really all year long, as we'll talk all things Cardinals throughout the winter as well. But let's waste no time and go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of it tonight, since we are a little bit of a late start. I was intending to go cover this game on Tuesday night, but as many of our listeners know, I live out in O'Fallon. It's about a 45-minute commute for me to get to the ballpark, and with the game not starting until 9 p.m., I got to say, I don't really regret the decision to stay home and watch it on television, because I would still be at Busch Stadium. I would still be right now probably in the interview room or the Cardinals clubhouse, and then maybe 20, 30 minutes from now, I would have a chance to grab my stuff, walk to my car, and then a 45-minute commute later, I'd be sitting down to do this. So it'd be like 1:30 in the morning, give or take, and that's not tenable with the plans that I have for Wednesday. So that's why we're sitting down now, getting right to it. Cardinals win. Let's talk first about Sonny Gray's outing. He goes 5 innings after a long rain delay, finds a way to get the Cardinals in position to win this game. He does earn the win, in fact, his 9th of the season, to improve his record to 9-3, a 3.51 ERA for Sonny Gray on the year after giving up a couple of earned runs over 5 innings pitched tonight. He had 6 strikeouts, only walked 1 batter, and gave up 5 hits. So a pretty tidy outing for Sonny Gray, but only threw 70 pitches, which maybe stood out to some folks when they saw Steven Matz trotting in to pitch the 6th inning. Why was Sonny Gray pulled so early from this game was the question that some Cardinals fans had. It may be that Oliver Marmol addressed this in his post-game. I'm sitting here talking to you, fine people, so I did not hear the post-game, did not take the time to watch it before settling in here, as it is already almost midnight Central Time. My assumption, though, is that if Oliver Marmol was asked about it, his answer would have been something along the lines, and again, I hate to put words into the guy's mouth, but I feel pretty comfortable knowing that the Cardinals were pretty careful with Sonny Gray for a couple of reasons. One, the 2+ hour rain delay absolutely changes things. And I think that would have been true for anybody, but in particular for Sonny Gray, who we know, as we've talked about, has a very particular way that he prefers to prepare for a game in his pre-game routine on days that he is due to pitch is meticulous and it is planned out. It has a purpose. And when you invite a rain delay into the mix, it certainly can throw things off. So I would say that the Cardinals were pretty satisfied getting 5 innings of 2-run baseball from Sonny Gray on 70 pitches, given the circumstances of the rain delay. Now, he was operating. I know that it was tweeted out and people were talking about this topic on social media Tuesday night, that he was on 4 days rest, which wasn't true. He was on 5 days rest. He got an extra day of rest. 4 days rest would be the normal amount. You rest for 4 and you pitch on the 5th day. He rested for 5 and pitched on the 6th day, which is something the Cardinals have pretty commonly been able to provide him with, a luxury to kind of get that extra day compared to a 5-man rotation. It's not been the case every single time, but it's been with pretty good frequency that Sonny Gray has been afforded that extra day of rest. I think other Cardinals starters have had it as well, with the Cardinals implementing a 6-man rotation from time to time, strategically using their off days, etc. The Cardinals have been able to give their rotation a lot of that extra cushion throughout the season, and I think Sonny Gray, along with all the other starters, have benefited from it. But I would imagine that even with the extra day of rest, it was certainly a factor that the Cardinals had to consider, was that he was expecting to pitch in a game at 6:45 or so and ended up pitching in a game that started around 9 p.m. So Sonny Gray had to adjust for that, and he's also scheduled, we presume, to pitch on Sunday, the final day before the All-Star break. The Cardinals originally would have had him scheduled to pitch tomorrow, to pitch Wednesday in this series, but moved him up to Tuesday in order to facilitate getting him another start before the break. He's their best starter. He's their ace. He's not an all-star, and so pitching Sunday is not anything that would preclude him from opportunities over the All-Star week in Atlanta. So with the extra day of rest that he got anyway, it made sense not to have him go 7 days between starts with 6 days of rest. They bumped him up, and Pallante is going to go Wednesday. Makes perfect sense, still gets an extra day, and the Cardinals are able to, on regular rest, 4 days rest, pitch on the 5th day, get Sonny Gray to go Sunday. Knowing that that's the plan, knowing that there was more that was asked of him than is standard when it comes to his prep, and then needing to ramp back up, and I don't know the degree to which he got totally hot and ready, or if the Cardinals were able to let him know, hey, you may want to adjust because we're probably not starting this game on time. I'm not 100% familiar with the way that went down. I would be curious to read some of that in the reporting from the ballpark tomorrow. But it is an interesting topic of conversation. All that being said, yes, 70 pitches is not the standard. Was I surprised, though, by the Cardinals pulling him at that point? 70 successful pitches over 5 successful innings. No, it was about what I expected the Cardinals would ask of Sonny Gray tonight. It's just a really good thing they got the game in, because had that not been the case, and Sonny Gray had gone through his pre-start routine for a game that did not occur, well, that could have created some real issues for the Cardinals on a pitching front, because they would have potentially had a doubleheader on Wednesday. I don't know if the league would have made them play that or would have made them available to play this game in September on a mutual off day between Washington and St. Louis. I'm not 100% clear about that, but let's say they would have said, hey, doubleheader on Wednesday or doubleheader Thursday before getting out of town. Do the Cardinals have the willingness from Sonny Gray to have him pitch later on in this series, even if he had gotten hot today? And similar to June the 18th, when the Cardinals were due to face the White Sox but had a rainout and played a doubleheader the next day, the Cardinals didn't end up pitching Sonny Gray until June the 21st, a couple of days off before the 3rd day he was able to pitch. The exact reasoning behind that, not 100% clear, but as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Derek Gould, I thought shed some interesting light on this topic earlier tonight on social media. He's, of course, the beat writer for STL Today in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and he put a little notebook paper out with a planned schedule for the Cardinals rotation and then what they had to rewrite for their schedule after the rainout. You can follow Derek at dgould on Twitter. But basically, when it rained on the 18th of June, the Cardinals had Fetty, who was due to pitch on the 19th, start one of the games of the doubleheader, and McGreevy started the other one. He was the one that was called upon to fill the spot. And they pushed Gray behind the next pitcher in the rotation, which was Pallante, who was always due to pitch on the 20th of June. He ended up doing so, sliding Gray onto the 21st of June against the Cincinnati Reds. That created a scenario where Gray did not end up pitching against the Cubs in either of the recent series that the Cardinals played against Chicago. Pitching on the 21st of June meant that his next turn would come on the 27th of June because the Cardinals wanted to slot McGravy into the rotation one more time to give everybody a sixth day, a fifth day of rest, pitch on the sixth day, which meant that the Cardinals series against the Cubs at Busch Stadium, 4 of their guys pitched, 6 starters, 2 that didn't were Michaelis and Gray. Gray ended up pitching the very next day, the 27th of June, against the Cleveland Guardians. If you'll recall, he threw a one-hit shutout and was fantastic. So really very difficult to argue with the decision process there by the Cardinals to honor an additional day of rest for all their starters, including Sonny Gray. Really the only guy who did not get one in that instance was, I believe, Michael McGreevy, who pitched on the 5th day. Everybody else got one that week, and Gray was included. Hard to argue with the result with how good he pitched against Cleveland, in my opinion. People see him not pitching against the Cubs, and they still might find a reason to gripe. But I would say, no, pretty reasonable to give him that extra day because everybody else was getting it, and it's proven to be a valuable commodity for the guys in the rotation throughout the season. Now we move ahead to the following week where Gray, because of all of the things that had been changed, remember, he was lined up to pitch against the Cubs twice, didn't end up pitching against them at all, and the second time, that was because he pitched on the 2nd of July, which was right before the long-awaited scheduled off day. And then the Cardinals, of course, played at Wrigley on the 4th of July. Miles Michaelis gave up more fireworks than I saw at my cousin's house in unincorporated St. Charles County on the 3rd of July. It was a disaster. But I just don't know if there was a way that would have made sense for the Cardinals to save Sonny Gray for that game, because if they had done so, not pitched him on the 2nd of July, Sonny Gray would have ended up on the 4th of July on a full week of rest, 6 days, which is more than they want him to have. That 5th day, valuable. You go to a 6th day, it gets to be a little bit too much rest. You talk about rest versus rust. Another factor is that Sonny Gray is not, and this is something that Mike Claiborne mentioned to me on the one of the shows we did together for STL Sports Central, is not necessarily somebody that prefers to pitch after a team off day, right? Team was off on July the 3rd. They travel in the 4th if he would have pitched, which again, sometimes you can't avoid that. But in this case, 7 days between starts, plus maybe there's a preference there to have a pre-start routine the day before that involves the team playing a game, and so you're at the ballpark, you're not traveling, whatever the case might be. His preference was, according to what we talked about with Mike Claiborne, I believe that was last Monday, maybe that was the 30th of June where we were talking about it heading into the week that was. That was Sonny Gray's preference. And so all of that lined up to the Cardinals acquiescing, working with Sonny Gray to make sure everybody was comfortable with the schedule, whatever phrasing you want to use, to where he pitched on the 2nd of July against the Pittsburgh Pirates and then missed the Cubs. Now that has him pitching tonight on an extra day of rest, once again, the 6th day against Washington, has the rain issue, but finds a way to figure things out enough to get through 5 innings, and the Cardinals win. Is it a little bit strange that Sonny Gray is more meticulous and has certain parameters surrounding his usage and his availability? Perhaps, but I also think it's something that is probably not entirely uncommon among MLB starters. Creatures of habit, and when you're a guy that's a creature of habit who has as big of a contract as Sonny Gray has, who has as much experience knowing his body and learning what works for him as Sonny Gray has, I think the Cardinals are inclined to go, all right, this is what Sonny Gray says he needs. We're going to do our best to reasonably accommodate it. Questions that were asked of Derek Gould in the replies on Twitter, I think were valuable. And I know we haven't talked a lot about tonight's game yet, but this is a big topic of conversation, in my opinion, because it's something that I've seen discussed a bunch that I don't think people fully understand the reasoning behind. And so I've been talking about it, but with Derek putting out the little graphic that he wrote out today, I think it's valuable to talk about some of this again. So we'll try to wrap this conversation up quickly before getting into Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, and more from tonight's game. But Rusty Hendricks, in the replies to Derek on Twitter, asked an interesting question. He said, I understand the rain in Chicago causing problems. I guess the better question is, why can't Gray adjust? Why can't he pitch the next day? Why is his routine set in stone? Would the risk of that really affect his health? And Derek responded, he couldn't pitch the next day because he had gotten so far in his routine and pregame prep. He's precise, detail-oriented, and he believes his health and effectiveness comes from that. This is Derek Gould, a beat writer that covers St. Louis Cardinals, reporting on his understanding of Sonny Gray. Detail-oriented, believes his health and effectiveness comes from that. He's not alone in having that kind of process and prep. some have precision recovery regimen. So the thought being that Sonny Gray was deep into the prep on June the 18th, probably because of that prep and expecting to pitch that day, was not in a place where the next day's doubleheader, it made sense to start him. Whether that was Gray's preference, the Cardinals' preference, a combination of the two, that is the fact of the matter of the situation. So when people say, well, Ollie Marmol is this, Ollie Marmol is that, I think people misunderstand maybe some of the things that happen behind the scenes and the fact that they are collaborative in the way that they come up with pitching plans. Gray ended up pitching a couple of days later on the 21st of June, which of course pushed him back, and we didn't see him against the Cubs either time. It was not the way they originally intended it. They originally intended for him to face the Cubs twice, but as you sometimes hear said, plug your ears if you're a youngin', shit happens. That's really the way that it boils down to me when it comes to the Sonny Gray stuff. And yes, it is a little bit interesting that, okay, you didn't even pitch on that day, but you needed basically a third additional day, not pitching on the 19th, the 20th, and then you do pitch on the 21st of June to feel good about it. That's the decision that Sonny Gray and the Cardinals came to. I think to question it is to do so without adequate information about all the things that happen behind the scene. And so it's not really, in my opinion, a fruitful endeavor to publicly say, well, I know more than they know about Sonny's situation, his comfort, his preferences. And because I just think I'm an old school baseball fan and, Bob Gibson would have done this. Well, a lot of people weren't able to do over their big league careers what Bob Gibson did. So the fact that maybe is something that Cardinals fans can harken back to, sometimes probably not as valuable because very few pitchers in the history of the game were Bob Gibson or were like him. So that's my general thought on the whole saga of Sonny Gray for the last several weeks that I still feel like is misunderstood among the fan base, and it's why I tried to take some time here to lay it out a little bit more firmly. So whether or not you agree with that, let me know in the comments below, but at least I think we've talked about it as much as we possibly can. But it also does bake into why might perhaps be a shorter start tonight, given some of those same issues with the rain delay were probably in play tonight when it comes to his pregame prep and routine. And to get 5 and dive out of him and win the game is probably all that Oliver Marmol was looking for, especially considering you had an off day yesterday, right? We talk about, well, doesn't prefer to pitch after an off day. Guess it happened anyway. But all that being what it is, I think they got what they needed to get out of Sonny Gray tonight. And if you only have him for 70 pitches, he should be in an instance where you're not giving him extra rest before Sunday's start. He should theoretically be ready to go for that one because he didn't have to strain quite as much in going 6-7 innings or up to 80, 90, 100 pitches in this game. I think Sonny gave him what they needed, and the Cardinals were able to win. Why were they able to win? Well, they were finally able to get to Jake Irvin, which is something they absolutely needed to do, because Jake Irvin is a right-hander, not a lefty, which we know have played Cardinals, and Irvin came into this game with a 4.71 ERA. The Cardinals absolutely had to hit him. They, frankly, didn't quite hit him as hard as I thought they should have, but at the end of the day, gave up 4 earned runs over 6 innings, and the Cardinals took a little bit of advantage by wearing him down via the walk because they took 4 free passes. They had 6 hits against him, 7 on the night in total for the team, and they were able to do it with the benefit of the long ball as Brendan Donovan, the Cardinals' lone all-star, hits a key home run in the 3rd inning, and we see a home run by Lars Nootbaar in the 6th inning, which was quite frankly very good to see, considering some of the conversation that has been revolving around Lars Nootbaar over the course of the last, 24 to 48 hours or so. I guess really it's just been about 24 hours because STL Sports Central, which is a company that I do a lot of my content for, my written work, my podcasts, my live videos outside of b-schaeff Daily, is all for STL Sports Central. And 2 of the folks that I work with, Joe Roderick and Matt Rocchio, did the afternoon Cardinals show that airs pretty much 1 p.m. on most days, most weekdays. And they were talking about, well, Lars Nootbaar and maybe some of the recent struggles that he has had. And, well, Joe Roderick said something that I disagreed with, and a lot of Cardinals fans, I feel like, who heard it, disagreed with it, and so it sort of became a topic of conversation. I will play just a little bit of that clip for you now so you can at least understand what I am alluding to. And, of course, keep in mind, this is the backdrop happening all the day before and the day of, as people are seeing the clip on social media circulating, Lars Nootbaar hitting a home run in tonight's game to provide some key insurance that ended up maybe at least mentally helping Ryan Helsley out in an adventurous 9th inning as the Cardinals win it 4-2. Here was the comment from Joe Roderick, and I'll play a little bit of that clip now.
I mean, right now I kind of look at it as Michael Ciani, I think, provides more value to this team than Lars Nootbaar does.
Yeah, I would say that's fair.
And there was Matt Rocchio's voice in the background agreeing with Joe Roderick, which is a point that I did not agree with. People are really, really happy to kind of ride Lars Nootbaar for his struggles this season when in the morning we're going to wake up and his baseball reference page is going to refresh. And when that happens, I believe we're going to see Lars Nootbaar be rated as basically a league average hitter for this season, if not maybe even slightly above that, as he finished the game tonight with a 1-for-2 line, also reached base via walk. I believe he was the first Cardinal in the order to not get a fourth plate appearance, if I'm not mistaken, because the folks behind him didn't get one. I think Sajaci made the final out in the bottom of the eighth, and the Cardinals did not bat in the ninth. So 1-for-2 day with a home run and a walk. Pretty good for Lars Nootbaar. Did not strike out in this game as well. He's only hitting .226 on the season, but his OPS increases up to .711. It's going to put him right around league average. I would have to guess the OPS plus is going to be right around 100. For his career, Lars Nootbaar is a 111 OPS plus, and that is over the course of nearly 1,800 plate appearances. And what that suggests is that Lars Nootbaar, for the better part of 5 MLB seasons, has been 11% above league average offensively. OPS plus takes your on-base percentage. Do you get on base? Your slugging percentage. Do you hit for power? And smashes them together. And then the plus part comes from rating that relative to the rest of the league, your peers, and how you're performing relative to the league average. Lars Nootbaar has, every year of his career, been a better than league average hitter. This year, prior to Tuesday, was slightly below league average. My belief is he's going to settle in. Yes, he's struck out more often than we are used to seeing Lars Nootbaar strike out, but all in all, he's probably going to end up being about what he has been for his career, which is 10% or so better than the league average. My contention is, yeah, you're going to continue to play him in your lineup. No, you don't have to play him in the top half of your lineup because right now his numbers don't reflect that he should be there. But feel pretty good about playing Lars Nootbaar for the rest of the season and getting requisite production out of him. We're talking about an OPS in the 750 range, maybe a little bit lower because we have seen only a 699 prior to tonight and now a 711 for the season. So to increase it up to his league career average, of 758 coming into today, maybe he won't quite get to that level, but I generally think he's going to be around that mark. Generally think he's going to be around the career average of 241 that he has produced. But because of his good plate discipline, generally, we know that's a skill that has declined for him in recent times as he has gone through some slumping. He has an on-base percentage of his career for 344. I didn't say that the way I meant to say it, but you know what I meant to say. So he walks a bunch. His on-base is about 100 points higher for his career than his batting average, and the slug is even going to be a little bit higher than that because he does hit home runs. I believe he leads the Cardinals in home runs right now, which is more maybe a reflection of the state of the Cardinals hitting than it is Lars Nootbaar's credit. I mean, he does get credit for leading the team, but he's really only on pace for about 20 home runs, give or take. So the fact that he's hit 12 so far is not utterly impressive, but relative to his peers, it is getting the job done. No, just generally, I think Lars Nootbaar is a solid league average to above average bat, which he has always been. That's going to be a helpful producer for the Cardinal lineup. All due respect to Michael Ciani, who I do believe should be on the Cardinals roster right now today, because I think he would serve in a role better than what Garrett Hampson is giving you. No, I do not care about the handedness when we are nitpicking over guys hitting 170. I will take the guy that I know is a sterling defender, can run the bases very well, and at times gives you some surprises like he can bunt really well and might be able to put the ball in play and make some things happen with his legs. I just feel like Michael Ciani should be on the team. Don't really care that he's left-handed. Think he would serve in that reserve role better than what Garrett Hampson gives you. And I don't care that he doesn't play shortstop as a reserve because Thomas Sajaci could do that from your roster as well. I would have, and already would have had Ciani up for Garrett Hampson. You're still kind of waiting to see when Jordan Walker comes back. The word from Ollie Marmol this afternoon was that Jordan Walker is no longer dealing with a health concern. He's just trying to find his timing down there. So how long the Cardinals leave him in Memphis, or actually Springfield, where he has continued his rehab assignment, will be interesting to see, but it will not be from a health perspective. It's more from a baseball perspective at this point. They don't actually have to option him down because he's already there on a rehab. Kind of works itself out that he's able to get some ABs without having the extra scrutiny of the big league pressure and they don't have to option him down. It's more of just kind of a free and easy way to accomplish the same goal, even though I don't think right now Jordan Walker, the Cardinals have a ton of confidence in where he's at and that he would be playing a bunch if he was in the big league roster as of this moment. He was 1 for 5 the other day on Sunday with 4 strikeouts in AA. Believe he finished the night 0 for 3, but did not strike out in any of the at-bats on Tuesday. But nevertheless, right-handed, left-handed, I would say Siani should be here. He should not be in the daily lineup above Lars Nootbaar, and that's why I had some fun with posting a video of my own detailing why I disagree with Joe Roderick's take, and then, of course, Nootbaar homered, and you had fun things like Josh Jacobs posting the Max Kellerman meme where he insisted, I want Iguodala, and pasted Joe Roderick's face over top of that and had the character saying, I want Siani. It was good fun. Join us tomorrow. I will be on more shows on Sports Central over the coming days. I think I'm on the post game for both Wednesday and Thursday. So if you want my immediate reaction to the next 2 Cardinals games after they finish, check that out on the STL Sports Central YouTube page. Do want to mention, though, Brendan Donovan, really clutch to get the swing from him that the Cardinals did. He was 1 for 3, also reached base with a walk, and had a 2-run homer in this game. Was extremely key to see that because the Cardinals were actually trailing going into the bottom of the 3rd inning. Sonny gave up a few bleeders and 2 runs. The 2-run runs he did give up happened in the top half of the 3rd, and so for Donovan to hit a 2-run homer that helped plate Victor Scott as well was great to see. Alec Burleson with an RBI double later in the inning to score Mason Wynn. Your one all-star is Brendan Donovan. He is so very deserving. I think it would be great if he could have an OPS above 800 when the all-star game happens, just so that when that number flashes across the screen during the game, people understand that he's as good of a player as he is. I think Brendan Donovan has been a huge team leader for this Cardinals team. I can't say enough things about my belief that he should be extended by the front office, whether it's this one or the one taking over in the offseason in Chaim Bloom's group. But Donovan is as I talk about Wilson Contreras being a heart and soul guy, and his OPS is creeping up there as well. Was on base twice tonight in 3 at-bats with a walk and a hit, up to 762. Another heart and soul guy is Brendan Donovan, so good to see him coming through and sort of settling things down when the Cardinals really needed it there, tying things up in the bottom of the 3rd. The insurance was provided by Nootbaar in the 6th, and then in the 9th inning, you were able to get what you needed from Ryan Helsley, even though it was an adventure. He gave up a couple of fly balls that were a little bit too close for comfort to the warning track, but all's well that ends well. The final out, a ground ball to shortstop that Mason Wynn flipped to second, barely getting the runner from first there in time for the force out, but I think that was probably the right call by Mason because it was Jacob Young, the 9-hole batter for the Nationals, that was batting, and he may have beat out that play to first base and caused further issues if Wynn had tried to make the longer throw. So really all's well that ends well, Cardinals fans. You got a good performance for the bullpen, which was really clutch to see. Steven Matz, with an inning of work, gave up a hit and a walk, but was able to get through it scoreless. Phil Maton looking really, really good, and if there are any late additions to the All-Star team, might consider looking on the pitching side of Phil Maton. His 1.85 ERA and 18 holds are pretty sterling. Jojo Romero was really sharp, I thought, tonight. The slider was working for him. A couple of strikeouts in a scoreless inning. And Ryan Helsley, we talked about giving up some base runners, but all's well that ends well. He gets his 18th save of the season in a scoreless 9th as his ERA drops to 3.19. So this was the game, in my opinion, that if the Cardinals are going to have the homestand that they need, which is to win the homestand at least 4 out of 6, you had to win this game. I said on the afternoon radio show, The Big Show in Columbia, which airs on KTGR, the ESPN affiliate out there in Como, I said, you can't ever really say this, but it's a must-win game for the Cardinals on Tuesday because you had Gray going. You're facing a right-hander, which is to your benefit as a left-handed heavy lineup. You're facing a right-hander who's not particularly great in the record book. He did have a 7-3 record, Jake Irvin, coming in, but he had a 4.71 ERA. The Cardinals need to beat up on guys like that, and they did enough against him, although they did let him go 6 innings. They put up 4 runs against Irvin, and that ended up being enough thanks to the pitching performance that the Cardinals got. So everybody can relax for a moment. The Cardinals are off the schneid. The Cubs lost tonight. The Twins beat up on the Cubs pretty good. I do believe the Brewers won with Jacob Mizorowski striking out 12 Dodgers in that game. So that's a problem for the Cardinals and their hitters coming up. But the Cubs did lose, dropping that game 8-1 to Minnesota. So the Cardinals do gain a game on Chicago there. Now just 5.5 games out in the standings for the NL Central. Yes, you have the Brewers to hop over, but you also have the wild card possibilities that will continue to linger for the Cardinals. As of the moment, looking at the updated standings as I record this, I don't know if the Padres have finished their game today. They did indeed defeat the Diamondbacks 1-0. So as of right now, the Cardinals still a half game behind the Padres, but the Padres are actually not even in a wild card spot anymore. The Giants, who won in pretty exciting fashion, a walk-off inside the park home run. I believe it was Patrick Bailey who hit it, caromed off the right center field wall, and nobody could get to it. It was actually pretty compelling. You should go watch that video on Twitter if you have a chance to do so. But right now, the Phillies, who are tied virtually with the Mets for first place in the East, but we'll just say the Phillies are the wild card. The Mets are the divisional leader out there. The Brewers and the Giants would be your wild card teams. And right now, the Cardinals are trailing the third place wild card team, which statistically is the Giants, and they're trailing them by a game and a half. So they're right there in the mix still, but you had to beat up on the Nationals today. And frankly, I think you might need to sweep this series. We'll see if they're able to do that. It'll be Andre Pallante that goes on Wednesday. It will be a tougher pitching matchup as Mackenzie Gore. There's that thing again. It's the left-handers curse that's coming against the Cardinals. So can they get to Mackenzie Gore, get him to work counts, and maybe get him out of the game to get to that Nationals bullpen? Obviously, the Nationals having plenty of turmoil, firing their manager and general manager over the past week or so. Miguel Cairo, former Cardinal, installed as the interim manager over on the Washington side. If they can get the win with Pallante against Gore on Wednesday, would set up a potential to sweep the series with Miles Mikolas on Thursday. I know people not thrilled about Mikolas. He's going to be here for the time being. We will wait and see when it comes to Eric Fetty, whether he will be pitching later on this weekend. I believe the phrasing from Molly Marmol is that it's written in pencil that he'll be in there, currently scheduled to be in there. He may not have said the pencil part. I may have injected that myself. But I think there is still room for that to potentially change. If the Cardinals were going to do it this way, they wouldn't necessarily announce it just yet. So we will see what ends up being the case there. I'm trying to find this tweet from Jeff Jones from earlier that was sort of pertaining to the situation revolving around Eric Fetty. We read the quotes from a couple of days ago that basically outlined that they need to figure out what's going on with Eric Fetty. From Marmol earlier today, according to Jeff Jones of the Belleville News-Democrat, the Cardinals are, quote, still working through conversations, end quote, for what Fetty's scheduled start will look like on Saturday. Penciled in for now, but that is not definitive. So we shall see. The fact that they got the game in tonight was very important, though, because imagine if they had to play a doubleheader tomorrow or later this series. I don't know if I fully was able to dive into my thoughts on this, but basically it would have meant, well, Sonny's not starting twice before the break. Couldn't start Wednesday and Sunday. Maybe he wouldn't have been even able to start Wednesday because if he got so deep into his routine Tuesday for a canceled game, it would have been just like last month when they were in Chicago and he didn't pitch till 3 days later. So what happens for a doubleheader tomorrow? Well, Pallante could pitch one of the games. The other one, good luck. They might have been calling up somebody like Curtis Taylor from AAA as the Memphis Redbirds rained out on Taylor's scheduled start day Tuesday night. It would have been an epic disaster if Sonny Gray was like, no, I can't pitch on Wednesday. I need another day or two after, kind of warming my body up and ramping up through that. So that would have been tough. And they also potentially would have then needed a starter on Sunday if Sonny couldn't go again for that one. And so you would have been probably looking at Michael McGreevy pitching Sunday with Eric Fetty pitching Saturday. Eric Fetty was probably doing the rain dance. It didn't end up working out in that way. So now I still think you are afforded the luxury, if you want to do it that way for the Cardinals, to pitch McGreevy on Saturday and then Sonny on Sunday. You could honestly do that without having to make a roster move at all when it comes to Eric Fetty because you're so close to the All-Star break. You could take Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Everybody can sort of relax over that week. And then you could revisit what the rotation looks like when you come back. You could just basically skip Eric Fetty without making a roster move. You would technically be short a bullpen guy if you did it that way for Saturday, Sunday. But I don't know. Maybe that's a possibility. We shall very much see the way that the Cardinals would like to approach that. Obviously, the roster move would be getting McGreevy here in the first place. But if it's not Fetty as the outgoing player, there's where the bullpen guy would come from. Couple more things that I know we want to get to. Circling back because I saw Jeff Jones tweet about this as I was posting here. Sonny Gray said there was 3 separate times in pregame where he was expecting a postponement, including a 30 to 45-minute stretch in which he was fully planning for that. As a result, he came in after the 5th and told Marmol he was out of gas. Simple as that. Nobody should be surprised that this happened. Good on Sonny Gray for publicly owning that so that Ollie doesn't have to fall on the sword. Because I think there are times where maybe that doesn't get said in quite as plain of terms, but I think there's a credit to Sonny Gray for just being completely candid and saying, here's what happened. So that is good reporting there from Jeff, and I'll make sure to retweet that at my Twitter account at b-schaefer12. One other thing that I saw from the reporters at the ballpark, which again, as I said off the top, I was not there tonight, planned to be, but ultimately I wouldn't have been there for the pregame discussions anyway due to my afternoon radio show. Pregame discussions which declared and revealed this, that we could see Ivan Herrera back immediately after the All-Star break. That would be substantial news, because last I can recall, it was kind of like, late July, maybe by the trade deadline, maybe not. But Jeff reported, Ivan Herrera says he's able to do all baseball activity, was able to run the bases at full speed over the weekend, and he says he's heading to Memphis to start a rehab assignment on Thursday or Friday, and he plans on being available to come off the IL out of the break. So that would be huge, because the Cardinals need more right-handed thump in that lineup, and they won't have it tomorrow when they face against Mackenzie Gore, but we shall see whether the Cardinals are able to get the job done against him. That, though, is all I've got. I've emptied the clip. I'm not going to do Down on the Farm tonight. I do apologize. The Springfield Cardinals did play. I don't know what happened in that game because I was not following it particularly closely. I do know that Memphis rained out. There you go. Springfield, 7-1 winners. Bryson Motts was the winning pitcher in that game, and so the Cardinals did at the AA level the same thing they did at the big league level, and they won. Walker was 0 for 3, but he did walk a couple of times and score 2 runs, so things are progressing there, at least in a manner that he did not strike out a bunch of times today. That truly is all I've got. I can feel my voice going. But appreciate you guys, as always, for listening. Stay tuned for the rest of the week. We will continue to have our podcast regularly now that we are back from the holiday weekend. And thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.